I've always been driven by the belief that business is the most powerful vehicle of change we have at our disposal. And businesses in just about every sector are attracting customers because they successfully balance purpose and profit. Because they, like me, believe the world needs to transition to a kinder economy. And in a market where customers are making more informed decisions about how and where they spend their money, now more than ever, businesses must reevaluate what their license to operate really is. I'm Nick Hunter, CEO and founder of B Corp creative agency Paper Moose, and for years I've been obsessed with navigating that perfect balance between purpose and profit. We call it the mucky middle. Welcome to my podcast, where I chat with successful business leaders about how they navigate the challenges that come with finding their own balance, and hopefully learn how to be a better and more conscious business owner along the way. In this episode, I talked to Katrine Fox, Brand Marketing Director of Fable Food Co., about her journey from a high school dropout to a serial high-growth startup octopus. We talk about her most recent venture, Fable, about building and launching an alternative meat company focusing on ending industrial animal agriculture, and the important role brand plays in such a venture. This is The Mucky Middle. Well, thank you for joining us, The Mucky Middle, and tell me a bit about young Katrine. How did you get to this point?
Yeah, I grew up in Denmark, so quite far from Australia, where we're based now. Grew up in Copenhagen, quite suburban, with mom and a dad and a golden retriever and a younger brother. And I did a lot of rebellious stuff to try to break out of that. Dropped out of high school, found all these ways to intimidate my parents into appreciating that I wanted to do something else. And then I actually went into programming, MySpace was really popping up at that point, and I started doing HTML and thought I was a genius and it's Mark Zuckerberg. And so I got a job with a programming agency as a front-end developer. And so I worked as a front-end developer and then did a computer science and economics degree at Copenhagen Business School. And that got me into traveling with studying abroad, and I started seeing there's other things out there. And then I sort of went into, by chance, ended up in Australia to study. And I came back from Bangkok and studying on my bachelor's, and I thought, I just need to get out again. So actually the day I arrived back in Copenhagen, I went up to the office for exchange, and I said, I just need to get out again. How can I get out? And they said, well, the semester is a bit different in Australia because they do summer and winter differently. So you can come away on your second semester of your master's instead of waiting for the third. Huh? And so I thought, let's do it. And as I arrived there, the Iconic was sort of at its early start, just around the corner from here in Surrey Hills. And we were sitting on little camping tables. I got hired in the elevator because there was just this, it was very random coincidence. I ended up there visiting a friend. And then I got on the development team there, did QA, and then walked through the journey of the Iconic for a year, crazy growth. And then I met my husband, Michael, who was doing Shoes of Prey at that time.
Yeah.
So early online retail days in Australia and startup life with all of the different inspiring people that were at Rocket Internet at that time. Yeah. And then went to Finder. So
amazing. And then Fable.
Yeah, so I spent 6 years with Finder and was the global head of product there. Started up the product team and went to the US to help start up the US operation. So we lived in LA for a period of time. And while we were in LA, there was the Impossible and Beyond Burgers was starting to get really big in LA. And we were living in Venice Beach and, living really, conscious life. My husband's really healthy. I would put myself in a category of life indulgence as well. But yeah, he really cares about what he eats and started getting really interested in the meat alternative space. And then, we went to Denmark and there was a meat alternative there, naturally, that had started up as well. And there was just a lot of movement in the space. And we got back to Australia and thought, let's see what we can do. And I certainly didn't have that in the cards for us. We had a young child, 2 young kids when we got back to Australia.
Yeah, wow.
Just had an infant. And I was supposed to go back to Finder and work in the Sydney office. And then we came across a house on the beach in the Sunshine Coast while we were up there. We thought, why not?
Yeah.
So I quit my job and we took our savings out and put it into a rent in a house and said, no, we're going to bootstrap for a few, 9 months and see if we can get something flying.
Did you know it was going to be mushrooms at that time?
No, it was was a lot of networking around that time. It was like, here's the vision of doing something in the meat alternative space, not quite sure what it's going to look like. And then Michael started getting introduced to a bunch of different people. And one of them was Jim Fuller, who is now our co-founder. He's a mushroom scientist and biochemical engineer and fine dining chef. So he's got this amazing trifecta of skills, and just seemed like he had been doing his own little thing on the side and was sort of looking into meat alternatives and using mushrooms there. And it just became very apparent that that was where it was going to go. Also because we're living so clean and healthy ourselves, and it didn't really resonate with us to use a lot of, overly processed food and ingredients. And we just wanted something that was close to the source.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And okay, so you met the co-founder, and so founded Fable after that.
Yeah. So Fable became the name. I mean, we started out, we were actually called Butcher's Harvest to begin with. That was when there was a lot of, you're on a branding side of things, and for me, it's always been like, what's the thing that drives me towards eating something that's, vegetarian is not necessarily something that wants to be super scientific. It's something that there is an aspiration there for me in having the brand be something that's a little bit abstract, but says a lot. Yeah. And so we started out with Butcher's Harvest, and it just didn't feel right because it was exactly that. It was trying to be vegan, but like having the butcher thing, it was like a meat alternative thing. And then I was thinking about fashion brands, and we were like, I was just saying to Michael, like, like fab, like something fab. And then I was like, Fable, like it was like a fashion business. It sounded more like something inspiring.
More of a lifestyle brand.
More of a lifestyle brand. And then I Googled Fable, and it came up. The definition of fable is a short story with animals involved, usually with a moral to it. And it was like, bang, perfect. That's it. And then I just started buying the Fable Food domains and setting up the Instagram and all that stuff. And then that was sort of there.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's so rare to have that everything just sort of come together in that perfect. You normally have to, change the word, or that it's not available, or amazing.
Yeah.
And so is the brand now available all around? Which markets are you currently?
Yeah, so we're in the US, the UK, Singapore, and Australia, and New Zealand as well. So we can distribute this quite wide. We manufacture it in Malaysia as well, so it sort of is easy to ship it out from there, which is strategically the way that it's been set up. So it works well. We've got really wide distribution now in the UK, and the US is, really coming on board as well. We've got 2 people in New York, and with one of the biggest distributors, or like really sort of really good food distributors in New York. And in Australia, we've had a few different bigger clients that you might have seen. Yeah.
And what do you find are there interesting nuances between the different audiences for the different countries?
I think it's just it's sort of a timeline thing with alternative meats. I think the US sort of were there really early on, and they did a lot with the Beyond and Impossible, and then there's been this whole backlash at that sort of overly processed alternative meat industry. Consumers are starting asking questions about what was actually in it to begin with, and if it's actually good for you, because the fact of the matter is that you're choosing a plant-based diet. Usually it's not an environmental consideration to begin with, it's actually a health consideration. And then Australia is an interesting one because we're sort of straddling between those two things, I think, but consumers are really health conscious in Australia. And, grilled healthy burgers is like the tagline, and DIG is like fast food your mom would approve of. I think those 2 customers that we've had, they were just like naturally drawn towards our product over others because it had that
closer to the
minimally
source.
Processed.
Yeah, interesting. And so have you found the last sort of 12 months a much broader interest in the product just because of the backlash of some of these other alternative meats?
Yeah, I think because we have been falling in the meat alternative industry sort of bracket, there's been a bit of a backlash in that. So we've seen a slowdown in the category. But we differentiate ourselves in that, and we're trying to build a brand that really leans into the fact that we are different. And actually now we're not even talking about meat alternatives. You know, our tagline actually, real food, really meaty, is something we're now changing away to mushrooms reimagined.
Okay.
And it's something that just felt like it resonated more with us. Like, we're reimagining the way mushrooms taste and the way mushrooms are perceived, because there is so much greatness in mushrooms.
And do you find that was the initial hypothesis that a part of the population just aren't into mushrooms, so let's kind of avoid that? Was that kind of the initial instinct?
Yeah, that's exactly where it started out. I think we thought that 40% of people didn't think they liked mushrooms.
Is that the stat? 40%?
That's the number we had in our head. I don't actually know who read that fact.
Oh, okay.
Which is the problem. I mean, you need to do some source analysis here. But yeah, I think at some point that figure got waved around in our minds, and we sort of hung our hat on that, and we're like, okay, well, if 40% of people don't like it, let's not exclude ourselves, because it's already a small market with the plant-based meat sort of thing. So yeah, we thought that. And then now we've done a lot of consumer research, and we found out that, you know, it's really not as big as we thought. You know, most people actually, they like mushrooms. There's a lot of mushroom lovers that we now want to talk to and target specifically, like yourself. But you know, even mushroom haters, they just don't exist in the way that we thought they did.
Yeah.
So we can talk about mushrooms safely.
Yeah, love mushrooms. Yeah.
And love mushrooms.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And can you tell me a little bit about, like, what's been the difference? Because you've gone from some very big startups to being part of, you know, from a fragile little baby startup to now what it is today. Kind of what are the different types of startups that exist?
I was at the Iconic when there was like 30 people there, so it was still very small, but had lots of backing, obviously. So the funding was already there, and I was young, so I didn't really understand it all. And then I was part of the Sanui as well, which was also a small team, but it was definitely more funding there. I think the one thing I can say about that experience is it's pretty fascinating to be part of something where you feel like you've got a bit of wind in your sail. It didn't feel as hard on me personally. I was just there to sort of do my job, and you know, it felt invigorating when we got wins and all that, but I didn't feel it on my body like I do now. At Finder, I mean, we were 25 when I started, or 20 maybe, and now there's like 350 or something. And in that period I was there, I think we scaled up to 200. So that journey was like very startup-y, very scrappy. I mean, you know, we consolidated the domains that was one of my first tasks there, was to like get life insurance Finder and credit card Finder and all these different domains to actually become a Finder brand. And that was like such an interesting process all the way through. But the growing pains of being in a business that grows, you know, you need to grow with the business. And I think I struggled at Finder to find my feet in that, because I'm quite a nostalgic person. So I would always look back at what it used to be. And as the bigger we got, I became that person standing in the corner sort of telling these anecdotes about how things used to be.
When there was only 5 of us.
Yeah, I know. And it's just a bit tiring. Like, it's like, yeah, great. You were there to begin with, but now is now. And, you know, all these new people have come in and they've got new ideas, and you're just sort of clinging on to the past a little bit. So I'm trying to find, with Fable now, it's, you know, how not to be that person, how not to keep telling these old anecdotes all the time.
When we're all mucking in and just doing crazy things just to get it to work.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's so easy to also hide a little bit behind that hustler attitude, where, you know, you need a bit more systems in place, and you need a bit more guidelines, and, you know, some actual strategies to get things done, where, you know, when we first started Fable, I would like do like, oh, let's make a social media something activation. And, you know, I would stand in a cold room and like pack all these weird gifts and all that. Like, now I don't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
But like that is there's a lot of charm in that, but you have to sort of figure out how to move and grow with that.
And grow beyond that. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. I always think about the different phases in our life, like when it was the 5 of us just started it, and then 10, and then, there's very distinct gear shifts. Obviously, we're not multiple hundreds of people here, but it is interesting just to see those nuances and to go well beyond that into the hundreds. It would be, I imagine there's lots more gear shifts through that process as well.
Yeah, and like having a global team, I mean, that was something with Finder that was really challenging. I was working in LA at the time and managing a team in Sydney, and then we had development offices in Manila and Poland, and so I'd work around the clock and fly into Sydney and manage the team and back again and try to do it remotely. Now we're a fully distributed team at Fable, so a lot of the learnings from that, like the communication flow and all of that, is something that we have to constantly think about and reevaluate, and we're not getting it right most of the time. I mean,
You said that you've kind of been a part of a lot of these fast growth periods in a lot of startups. Is that kind of your favorite?
Yeah.
I know we're talking about moving beyond that, but is that your favorite?
I think it's incredibly accelerating. I mean, and also because I'm a bit of an octopus I love the creative work. I love the branding. I love the marketing. I love the product. Like I still do all our website coding and stuff. I just love having all these different hats, and you get that when you're in a fast growth startup. Yeah. And then you work on adapting all the time and like pivoting and figuring out new solutions to things that just constantly arise. I think that's really accelerating. I did like consulting in like an insurance company for a period of time between Finder and Fable, and I just found it really hard with the red tape. I don't function well when things get too orderly.
Get the sense you like a little bit of dirt under your fingernails,
totally. And I just want to be able to. I want to be able to move fast when I've got an idea or want to move forward. Then we need to be able to just roll with it. And,
How does that work with partners? Like, do you work with other creative partners, or like how do you integrate with broader teams?
Yeah, I mean, we work with our food service partners all the time, so we're building, campaigns with them, and that would be like the biggest partnerships we have. I think the fact of the matter is that we don't have a lot of control over what the actual creative execution is, but we have a lot of weight in what we bring to the table in the beginning conversations of launching with a partner. So it's getting all of that material right and ready for them to take and actually utilize the things we want them to do. So, we've just launched with a partner in like with GYG Singapore, for instance, and we've had a lot of learnings from GYG in Australia. And now we've done a lot of customer research over the last 6 months. And, we've found that, the mushroom angle is really important, and people like, the word char-grilled shiitake sells better than plant-based pulled beef, for instance, which that has like a 10x increase in sales if you change just the word from that to
That's
that.
fascinating. Yeah.
Super fascinating stuff. And so now we're trying to bring this research to our partners and say, hey, there is an opportunity here. And we're not taking, this is another conversation, but not cannibalizing the existing sales. Like, why would they change their menu item for, the naming of that to the customer that they've already brought into their shop? Yeah. But there is like a whole other set of research here that says that there's like a veto vote. So the way that people decide which restaurant to go to is the restaurant that has the best vegetarian offering. And you can actually increase your sale of the business just by having greater vegetarian options.
Mouth-watering words.
Mouth-water. Totally.
Yeah, char-grilled is a good one.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And then sometimes we bring it forward and we're like, wait a second, it's not actually char-grilled. It's like slow-cooked something.
Right. Doesn't make sense now.
But like, so we don't always have control over it, but we try,
And can you tell us a little bit about building the brand of Fable? Like, what's that journey been like?
yeah, I think to begin with, a lot of intuition went into coming up with what looked aesthetically right. And we wanted to be a premium brand because we were making like a braised beef alternative, and that felt quite exclusive. And we wanted to sort of stand out. So we made this, I mean, this is sort of a fun war story. And we made black packaging in retail that we rolled out with. All the other plant-based companies were all like bright green and very leafy. And I was like, oh, let's, just go against the conventions and make like a dark premium chocolate brand. Like that was sort of the vibe.
Very rich.
And then, yeah, beautiful, right? And we had very short time to make the packaging and get it in. So we had 1,200 stores we needed to launch into, and we pretty much had like 15, I think it was, we had maybe 30 days to make packaging and get it into stores. And so we just decided on this thing, didn't do a lot of research. It got out on the shelves, and Woolies shelves are all black. And so it was just incredibly recessive on the shelves. We do customer research, like standing in store. Michael and I would stand and look at people, going over the plant-based shelves, and we'd just see their eyes just like moving over the Fable packaging. And then we would ask them, did you notice this thing? And they're like, no, actually, didn't see that at all, So massive brand fail. Don't do that. At least like do a mock-up, print it out, put it on the shelf, see what it looks like in the category. And so I think we went through that, like a lot of intuition, and then we started figuring out, okay, there's a science to this. I was from tech, and Michael had done shoes, and none of us had actually really built like a food brand before. We were really focused on the whole concept of product market fit. So we went out with the pulled Fable product, and we saw that maybe 5% of the market was interested, and is that enough to justify a big operation? So we've done a lot of work now to try to figure out the value proposition, how many people can we target, how many people will eat the product or has a probability of eating the product. And the last 6 months we pulled all our marketing efforts back, haven't done any real creative work, and scaled back that side of things to just do customer interviews. So we have interviewed every man and his dog on what they think about mushrooms and whether they're mushroom lovers or not. And we've identified 2 key target sort of personas. And then we've even done food stalls where we've put up, different products we've put up the same product selling with 4 different names on it to see which one get picked the most. So
interesting.
Our marketing team has been standing at a food stand at a food market every Saturday and slinging burgers. It's been just really good. I think now we're feeling really confident going in with more of that leaning into mushrooms angle. We've got much more research to say what partners need to do to talk about our product in a way that gets sold. And it's been like a process, and now we're starting to get the art of it, and not just the intuition.
I love that kind of just test and learn process though. It's something exciting about having a hypothesis, putting it in market, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and then kind of continuously iterating.
Yeah.
I guess difficult when you've put a huge amount of orders of into Woolies, then that could be very stressful, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the difference is from having, worked in computer science sort of world, is you can just change it.
Yeah.
And then it changes on the website or, in the software you're building. And then here you've got a product that's physically sitting on the shelves, and, the worse it is, the slower it moves.
Yeah.
I can sort of firsthand attest to that. We're getting to a place now where I've got the background to say confidently a lot, but there will still be a huge amount of it that has to do with, the vibe that I think our business needs to have. And that's a big, bold call, that you can never be too sure on that. But
how important do you think the brand is in this type of space?
I think it's really important that the brand is distinctive, so that it's memorizable. we're currently reading a book in the business called Red by Greg Cree, and he's the CEO of Yum Brands, and talking about relevance, ease, and distinctiveness as a brand. And how to make sure that you're socially relevant and you're easy to get access to. Those are like really key components of your brand. You know, you can have a really beautiful chocolate brand, but if you're not, you know, stocked in the local supermarket, people will pick up a Snickers. So, and then the last one is to be distinctive. So to be memorizable, to make sure that people sees you in the space that they walk by because that's what they're familiar with. So I think it's really important.
What do you think are the do you think there's common mistakes that people make in this territory that you've noticed along the way? Because obviously it's been a pretty turbulent few years for the alt protein kind of area. Where do you think some brands get it wrong?
Well, I think it's just the core premise of people are not going to put anything in their mouths just because it has the value proposition of eating less meat is not going to be the thing that brings people over the line. I think the industry is we're all collaborating, so we're all trying to understand what's going on. We all have a shared mission of bringing down the meat consumption in the world for greater good of the planet and all that. So, you know, I'd love to see, you know, Beyond and Impossible succeed. And but I think one of the challenges there has obviously been the overly heavily like focus on artificial ingredients and things that people don't understand, and just being a novelty product. So we need to talk much more about what is in it. Why does it taste good, or like, you know, get it in people's mouth. We know that people are not going to go into a shop and pick it just because they've got a philanthropic view of how they want to save the world. You know, they are going to pick the pulled pork thing that they've been used to having at their banh mi every lunch break sort of thing. But giving them an option to introduce it into an environment that they're used to, I think is the key to success for plant-based products. So yeah, we're working really hard on getting sampling sorted out for people.
And so do you find a lot of your audience is kind of like little entry, like dabblers almost, like, you know, I like to eat meat, but I also like mushrooms and I want to reduce my meat consumption because I know that it's bad for the planet. So I might try this as kind of almost like a gateway in some ways.
That's exactly it. I think the flexitarian segment is huge. That's the way in industry terms, people that like to, you know, meat reducers, they're doing it for the planet, but at the end of the day, it needs to taste good for them to make that decision over and over again. And so, getting them a little flavor taster while they're getting their other product, or, you know, giving them a good deal as an entry of, you know, hey, you should, you know, this is a limited time offering and you can get it slightly cheaper, or you can get it as part of a menu deal. I think that is the way to sort of slowly get people to change their meat consumption patterns. Yeah.
And how important is price in that equation?
Oh, huge. Like, well, I mean, taste, price, and health, like at this point, is like really closely related. For us, we produce at the same or cheaper than meat. So we are at that level now. That's been our sort of North Star for all our supply chain and manufacturing to get to that level. Hopefully it will be sold at the same price as meat, and it shouldn't be a problem to shift if you want to give it a go.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess what are the things that a lot of people probably underestimate starting something like this? Like the idea of a startup is really exciting, and it sounds, you know, from all of your stories, it sounds like, you know, a huge adrenaline rush and massive dopamine hit after hit. But I'm sure, you know, what are the things that people don't necessarily talk about?
Yeah, I mean the instability of of the life. You know, you don't know if you've got a job unless you work hard. I think that's a big sort of normal thing that we hear about startups. I mean, it's not an easy ride at all. I just met up with one of my old colleagues from Finder and was just talking to him. He said, "Oh, it looks like it's going so great," you know, and I was like, "Yeah, you know how it is. You know, it's always there's always ups and downs in this. You have to be really comfortable with the risk and the uncomfortableness of feeling like you never really know if you're onto the right thing, and you'll get knocked back 1,000 times, and it just feels like you're a little bit of a punching ball sometimes. Like one day you can be like, wow, we're going to take over the world, and then something happens and you just need to move through it and not let it wipe you out too much. I don't think I was as resilient as I am now. To begin with, I think I let a lot of stuff get to me. And I'm trying not to take it personally or let it be a symbolism of me as a person or my abilities.
Which is hard.
It's really hard, And I think the other thing is it's hard to get a house loan, and it's hard to, like, the world is not set up for entrepreneurs. So financially, we've got 2 kids. And
you're both in the same business. So
we're both in the same. We have put a lot of eggs in our basket here. So we're super aware of that. But it's just been, that's a bit tougher. I mean, the world is just not quite set up. We love to praise entrepreneurs, but on the financial side of things, it's hard to make it work.
Yeah, I feel that. And because when Fable was starting, you said that you had 2 young kids as well.
Yeah.
So
they're still young.
I've got a 3 and a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine, like, the energy that I needed to start Paper Moose is very different to what I need now to sort of keep it humming along. And where do you find the reserves?
I think our kids, they are such a huge part of our journey. I mean, my son sells mushrooms and grows mushrooms. It's just like, it's become a bit of a family business. They know that we worked hard. I actually think the narrative of that is beautiful for kids to learn. I mean, we can do a whole other podcast on parenting, but for me, I think, having resilient kids is really important, and I think it's going to get increasingly more important. So part of that is, there's not always room to play, or there's not always, because we need to make money, and, we need to earn a living. Otherwise, we can't have this house. I'll say that sometimes when they're like, why are you going away again? Or, it's like, well, we need food on the table, we need a roof over our head.
Were they also part of the journey, or the kind of the idea or the focus on conscious consumerism and reducing meat and saving the planet?
Yeah.
Was that kind of part of it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we couldn't live in the world today without, and I mean, we couldn't live in the world and be educated and see everything that's going on without noticing that there is a pretty risky future ahead of us if we don't do something pretty dramatic. I think for Michael and I, working in industries that had nothing really to do with saving the world, I think we felt really compelled to use our skills and expertise in something that felt meaningful for the future, for our kids, for everyone's kids. We could have chosen to, carbon offset our own whatever, or we could have, we were vegans, vegetarians, for the planet. And that was a really important consideration to that personal choice. But how could we use our skills to make a great impact? And that was where it all came from, And I think if everyone thinks about what their core competence and skill is and how they can magnify the effect of that into something that's greater for the planet, I just think that's beautiful. We could all just do so well with that.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good challenge for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have there been some difficult decisions that you've had to make, I guess, in being a successful commercial business and being purpose-driven, and, finding that balance between profit and purpose is not always super easy. Have there been certain times that's been difficult?
Yeah, I think it's a daily challenge. I mean, if you're a purpose-driven business and you don't sit sometimes and think, oh, did we really need that plastic wrapper on the lunch, or, like those are just sort of micro moments. But for us, for instance, like having plastic wrapping on our retail packs was something from a brand point of view I was very militant about, let's do compostable, vacuum sealed packs, or, But we wouldn't have been in retail, and that was what really got us out there. And we wouldn't have been in meal kit, and that was what got our business to where it is today if we had tried to do it in something that was compostable, because the technology wasn't there at the time. It might be there today, but because we do a process called retorting. So we put our product in a vacuum sealed bag and then we boil it for a period of time to sterilize it. So we're not putting any preservatives or anything in. We're just sort of boiling it in the method that's like sous videing. And you can't sous vide a product that is in a plastic wrapping, that is compostable, because that would sort of disintegrate. And then you get shorter shelf life, and then you can't get into the massive retailers. And, we have 2 years shelf life. So then you come down to, well, the shelf life of a product also means less wastage, because people will look at it and be like, oh, it needs to get discarded if they haven't gone through it. So I'm sort of, there is a means to an end here. We needed to make big impact. That means you have to make some sacrifices. At the moment, we're working on a product that we call the blended product. It is a product that you can mix in with meat and bring down the percentage of a beef burger, say. So you've got a beef burger that traditionally would be probably 80-90% beef. In some instances, if really good, would be 100% beef. But they put carrot pulp in it or other things to sort of bring up the volume and decrease the cost. Which is great, but it changes the flavor profile and it changes the color of it. With mushrooms, it actually enhances the flavor profile of beef because it's a great complementary thing. So in blind taste testing, beef and mushrooms combined actually makes a greater beef product.
Yeah, beef plus.
And we can get up to 40-50% mushroom, 50% beef, and still have a really great tasting beef product.
Yeah.
Australia is like one of the biggest meat consumers in the world. So every person in Australia eats around 90 kilograms of beef. 90 kilograms of beef a year on average. And, we're sitting at 2 kilograms of mushrooms per year per person. So, what could we do to bring down the overall meat consumption in the world? Well, minimize the amount of meat that people eat, even when they're eating meat. I think that's the way to go. But there's obviously a lot of sacrifice in that, thinking through what will consumers think when a vegan product all of a sudden starts working with meat manufacturers to bring down the consumption of beef. Are we then increasing the consumers? Are they going to eat more beef?
Longevity of beef, or
are they going to eat more beef? But what we find now, to just go a little bit on that, is Australia has sort of maxed out. We can't increase our beef intake. We're pretty much at the level of the highest level. We couldn't eat more beef if we tried to, or more meat if we tried to.
Don't encourage people.
Well,
Don't give them the challenge.
That's the thing. Yeah, is it a challenge? I don't know. But yeah, we couldn't if we tried to. So let's say, well, if we can't increase our meat intake, we're not doing anything to shift up the meat intake. What we're doing is we're taking a chunk of what people already eat, and we're minimizing the impact that has.
Interesting. And I guess that would also flow through to, say, minced products, so burgers, bolognese, that kind of thing. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And what is the long-term vision for Fable?
The mission for Fable is to sort of end industrial animal agriculture, and that's just because it's really bad for, the planet in terms of land use, agricultural land use, and the way that we use our natural resources on the planet. So, I don't have anything against sort of people who eat meat or meat manufacturers. It's just that it is not great for the planet. So we would love to take a chunk of that. So whether that would be with our blended product or with our vegan product, which I still think has a lot of value, and I think like that we will never stop being a vegan product, and we're never going to be producing meat. I can say that. That's not where we're aiming to just sell this product so that we can bring down the meat consumption.
Yeah,
so
it's a compromise that is for the greater good.
That's it.
And I guess it also talks to the other problem of just being able to feed enough people in the world. We are going to need to look at alternate, we've had other people on the show around cellular agriculture and all of those different ways of maximizing the resources that we have. So I think it's about looking at all the options and being able to sort of figure out what is the best way that we're going to be able to achieve that.
I think that is the big challenge that the world is facing right now, is like, if we keep eating how we eat. I mean, I hear a lot of people being very sort of anti-plant-based meat alternative, and that whole movement, and being like, well, we can just eat grass-fed, yada yada. And I mean, I think that's great. Sure, source it as sustainably as you can, but the fact of the matter is that the world can't keep doing that. I mean,
not everyone can afford that.
Not everyone can afford that luxury. Yeah. So we do need to find alternative ways of feeding the planet.
What's been the biggest surprise for you on the Fable journey?
That it wasn't easier the second time around. With Michael in the business, who'd gone through 10 years of learning, and you think you can, like, you've learned a lot, so you learned a lot, like, there's no doubt about it. You come in stronger second time around for sure. But I thought it was going to be easier. I thought you would be able to see the pitfalls, or you'd be able to see where the world was moving in some, like, I don't know, godlike way or something as a second.
I've made all the mistakes in the first time. Exactly. I'm not going to do it again.
I'm not going to do it again. Because that's always how you look back at what you've got, is like, oh, I should have done that. Now I know, because now I'm so much, older and wiser.
You did choose an entirely different vertical. So.
True.
Yeah.
True. Good comeback.
Got to give yourself a little bit of grace there.
No, I know. I think that is definitely a big learning for us.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite Fable dish?
Oh, I really like it,
what's
like marinated with like lemongrass and ginger, and then into a banh mi. I think that's really awesome.
Yep.
Put that in the fridge and just let it marinate, and then just fry it up quickly.
And you've done a whole heap of research in the last 6 months, you said. I guess, how are you going to keep up with the consumer and the changes in their taste profile and that kind of thing? What is the plan there?
I think it's like always just fact checking ourselves and talking with customers. I think that's the biggest challenge with businesses today. We're so busy with all our tools and all our software available to do all these different things that we forget to talk with our customers.
Actually talk to someone.
And actually just go out, talk in person or over the phone. Just like ask 5 whys to get to the bottom of it. We just ask surface level questions, and we sort of think we can do a survey or what vox pop, and then it's sort of tick the box of talking with people, but you don't really talk to people until you've asked them 5 times why after each other to get to the fundamental understanding of the problem.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think that's just something we're like constantly sort of exercising that muscle in the business and making sure everyone talks to the customers. And yeah, hopefully that will make us relevant for years to come.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess what advice would you give to young Katrine, looking back now? What would you say as that young university student?
I think it is really a bit more of like a sort of just do it, it's okay sort of attitude to things. I think I've been quite perfectionistic as well. I didn't really like to present my work until it's done, sort of contrary to the startup sort of vibe in me. So it's made me a little bit slower than I'd like. And I've found out later that, everyone's sort of winging it a little bit to a large extent. Like you have to go somewhere, and like action is more important than, getting it right. You won't know if it lands right unless you just do it. So a bit more of a, just do it sort of attitude.
Yeah, awesome. I also wanted to ask, I guess, how do you find that work-life balance? You're married to the business in many ways, and your kids, like, how do you find that balance?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like we work from home, and that really helps a lot. We integrate everything, I think, into the business in a way, but in a way where it doesn't feel like, oh, we're always working. We're also good at sort of just turning off our phones or Slack or whatever. I think we're quite mindful of that. I find Slack particularly noisy. And I have like said to the team as well, we've been talking about sort of the hygiene of Slack and the noise and stuff, and I mean, I'm not really expecting anyone to come back to me, immediately on that forum. And I don't think anyone should be expected to check all the channels. There's a lot of eyes going on one single message and one single channel.
Yeah.
And I think it was interesting. I spoke to my mom I was just back in Denmark and talking a lot about career choices. And she's been, a really high performing leader in her whole career, and she's about to retire now. And she said, KPIs is something the devil invented, because it's sort of just this thing that keeps you stressed all the time. And, 20 years ago, when we started getting all these tools on, the internet and, computers, and started integrating that in the workforce, we thought we would be so much more efficient that we didn't really have to work. And then you look at it now and it's like we're working 20 times as much, we're just working so much harder, but we were supposed to be more efficient. So I think we are more efficient, but capitalism has sort of taken over. And now we're just working, 20 times as hard, and everyone's working 20 times as hard. So in order to compete, you have to work so hard. I'm much more of let's just try to have a little bit of fun while we do it.
Yeah.
I think in a way, the people that will succeed are the people that passionately have followed it and not just mindlessly tried to pursue profit, because success is sort of in the passion.
Yeah.
And even individual success, you might not get as much as the competitive company, but at least you had fun doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the work-life balance, I think, for me, is much more scrutinizing what I do, why I do it, and if I do want to work as hard as everyone else.
You're being more mindful about the choices you make. Yeah, it is hard when we live in a system that is looking for continuous growth and a continuous return to the shareholders. And that system is kind of at a point where something needs to change, because we can only squeeze so much out of planet Earth, and endless growth has to stop at some point. So I think there will be some kind of shift and you can already see it happening with some businesses, but it is difficult when you are in that system already, and so much is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's exactly where it is with, you're seeing all this VC money being poured into businesses that have had this hyper growth stage, but they were fueling their growth through the VC money, so it was artificial growth. At Fable, we've been really mindful of, even though we've taken funding, we've so far had 15 plus 1.5, so 16. I think 15 in total for seed and A. But we've got a lot of that cash in the bank, and we're just sort of making sure the product market fit is there before we start scaling up the business. So we still have 20 people or 19 people, and we've been sort of at that level, not really going on a hiring spree, not really spending a lot of money on marketing and advertising, like nothing. And I still do our graphic design together with our, juniors. Yeah, I mean, it's just, we just do that because it would be so much easier, obviously, to just start spending that money, but it just doesn't resonate with us to do it in a way that doesn't feel like we know we're going in the right direction with it.
Yeah. And I guess it adds that additional stressor to it as well.
Totally. Yeah. And then you have to go out and raise new money, and in this environment. So I think there will be a movement towards, more sustainable growth in the food space as well. It's just not actually the way food works. You just don't grow in the scale that we see tech startups grow.
Because you're changing people's preferences in the way that they eat, and so it's not something that you just shift overnight. It's, I'm a fairly big carnivore, and I try and reduce my meat consumption, and I've slowly done it over the last, realistically 5 years, and I'm still nowhere near where I need to be. But it is, I recognize that it is going to take some time.
Yeah. It's a lot of emotions. It's a lot of behavioral change with food, and I think that's one thing. But just in general, we just don't see that type of hyper growth in food. We've never historically seen it. So the fact that Beyond and Impossible did it in that way, but largely fueled by shareholders, was just a bit artificial, if you can say it like that.
Yeah, which is probably why the issue right now.
That's it. So avoiding that pitfall.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Katrine. That has been awesome.
Thank you everyone for listening to The Mucky Metal. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed having the conversation.
And if you did, then drop us a review on iTunes or wherever you happen to be listening. We'll see you next month for another episode, but in the meantime, we hope you'll keep walking that fine line between profit and our planet.
The Mucky Middle is a Paper Moose production. Music by Caleb Jacobs.